Welcome everybody in Bologna. I hope you can hear me. Our presentation is now going to be done through this audio and video facility. I hope it will be regularized soon. We are happy anyway to have you, if not physically, online at this Infrachain Summit. It will be again a very interesting day in terms of contents and in terms of use cases, going from Industry 4.0 up to circular economy and arts and copyrights in the applications of blockchain. Very happy to join once again Infrachain from Net Service and from Bologna for an international event. Hopefully the next one will be once again live all together physically, but let's start now with this interesting day. Thanks.
Thank you, Cristiano, for your introduction. So we have three talks today. We have first of all blockchain in Industry 4.0, then we have blockchain and the circular economy, and last but not least we have blockchain in the creative industries. But before we start with the conference, I'd like to hand over the mic to the president of Infrachain, Mr. Fabrice Croiseaux, for a few welcoming words. Fabrice, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks to everybody to be here today, either physically or virtually, because as you probably know, there are lots of events this week, also today, and so I'm especially glad to welcome you all to this Infrachain Summit, which is the fifth one. We are at the fifth Infrachain Summit, so the first one, if we count, took place in 2016. At that time, we are not talking about DeFi, about NFT, etc., etc. So today we won't talk about DeFi. We will talk a little bit about NFT in the creative industry, but as usually we will stick on blockchain as an infrastructure. There are lots of events around crypto economy, on DeFi also. We will speak about blockchain as an infrastructure, an enabling infrastructure for industry, for all the subject Tom was talking about. So again, I wish you a very interesting day, very interesting conferences.
Okay, so thank you, Fabrice, for your introduction. Now we come to our first keynote speaker. It's the second year in a row that we have the pleasure to start our summit with a welcome keynote by Minister Franz Fayot. I invite you all now to listen to the opening keynote by Minister Franz Fayot, Ministry of Economy of Luxembourg.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the fifth edition of the Infrachain Summit. Due to unforeseen circumstances, I'm not able to be present in person and I regret it. Let me thank the organizers for the invitation to open the summit like I did last year. The Luxembourg government is looking with interest at blockchain technology. Green transition and digital transformation play a central role in relaunching the economy and in best positioning Luxembourg for the future. With our roadmap on Wirtschaft für Morgen, for a competitive and sustainable economy by 2025, we address the necessary industrial innovation policies, regulation, financial instruments, and actions. Our aim is to accelerate the inclusive and sustainable digital transformation of the key sectors of the economy for the benefit of all. In order to succeed, new innovative solutions across all sectors are necessary. And in that context, blockchain is a key element. Therefore, as Ministry of the Economy, we are supporting blockchain's developments and business applications. This is especially true with regard to Industry 4.0, circular economy, and creative industries, the sectors this Infrachain Summit is focusing on. Dear guests, blockchain applications are addressing the needs for solutions that are driving the digital and ecological transformation of the economy, including the industry. Indeed, the digitization of manufacturing in a circular economy opens up the potential for developing new strategic value chains. Digital solutions are changing the whole product chain, from design to post-sale service, as well as the factories, supply chain management, and related logistics operations. This is why we have decided to carry out a study about the different scenarios for transforming our industrial fabric by 2040 and the associated technological, environmental, and social challenges. The deployment of Industry 4.0 technologies and the decarbonization of the industry are at the heart of this study, and the reflections we are currently conducting as Ministry of Economy with our partners of both the private and public sector. Combining a set of disruptive digital technologies, such as AI, collaborative robotics, digital twins, Internet of Things, and even big data Industry 4.0 will give new opportunities to the factories of the future. Those technologies allow to increase productivity, to improve the customer experience, to make supply chain management easier, and to increase energy efficiency, but also to reduce the environmental footprint. Hence, the deployment of Industry 4.0 technologies will support the emergence of a new competitive, resilient, and sustainable economy. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the 6 key pillars of our roadmap, Ons Wirtschaft für morgen, our economy of tomorrow, is to drive the transition to the circular economy through digitization. We want to use the full potential of digital technologies in order to move from the traditional take, make, waste approach to a circular economy. We believe that digitization and connectivity, enabled by digital technologies, can help us to make products, processes, and services circular. We also believe that they can help us to monitor and protect the environment by decoupling emissions, as well as resource and energy consumption from economic activities. Several initiatives have already been launched in that context, such as the product circularity data sheet. Blockchain technology is used in that precise context to ensure the authenticity of the data in this pioneering project. The sector of creative industries is one where circular principles also represent a huge opportunity. The sector is disposed to develop creative solutions and innovative ideas. And further, the creative industries can draw advantage from blockchain. Blockchain can, for example, redefine how artists are paid for their creations by acting as a platform to receive value for their work. After my speech, many blockchain experts from all over the world will share their expertise and use cases with a focus on Industry 4.0, circular economy, and creative industries. I am sure that the exchanges will be rich and open new perspectives for everyone. Dear guests, blockchain technology and supporting blockchain's business applications offer both numerous opportunities but also challenges. Coupled with Internet of Things, AI, HPC, and digital twins, blockchain applications are promising. Besides the technical issues, major challenges include the interoperability of the systems, data protection, and sustainability. In that context, the Infrachain Summit is a perfect open dialogue platform for sharing experiences, exchanging ideas, and addressing challenges related to the implementation of blockchain technology. Let me wish you all very interesting and inspiring exchanges and a successful event. Thank you for your attention.
So thank you very much, Minister Fayot, for your kind introductory keynote speech. With that, we come to the first track of our conference today. It's the Blockchain and Industry 4.0 track. And we have a special pleasure to welcome as a keynote speaker Mr. Stephan Grengs, who is the Director of Manufacturing and Supply Chain at the Luxembourg-based company IEE. Now, Mr. Grengs actually will tell us what his expectations are with regard to blockchain. So IEE has not yet implemented a blockchain actually, but we wanted to have the user perspective who actually considers to use blockchain. So he will raise some very interesting questions, and we will then see in the upcoming presentations, but actually the questions that are raised now by Mr. Grengs will be answered by our successive speakers. So dear Stephan, the floor is yours now for the introductory keynote to the Blockchain and Industry 4.0 track of Infrachain Summit.
Some key facts about IE. IE is a startup started here in Luxembourg a bit more than 30 years ago. Meanwhile, we have 9 entities around the world where we are developing, selling, and as well producing parts for the automotive industry. And as you can imagine, this is going already to a challenge in the near future. Our markets are mainly automotive. There's the automotive market, but as well we are in health market, building market, and some other areas. But the core market is automotive, where we are in. 30 years ago, I mentioned already several times 3 persons. Meanwhile, we are above 4,000 people with a worldwide organization. And meanwhile, much more than 400 million vehicles, as Tom already said, are equipped with our sensors, and I'm sure at least one of those you know very well. So, our footprint today. We are located here in Luxembourg in Echternach, so with the manufacturing location, and in Wiesen with our headquarter of engineering. After that, we have a manufacturing plant in Slovakia, China, and Mexico. So while we are in those regions, these are the main automotive regions where we are selling, where we're shipping from. But beside that, we are located in Korea, in Japan, in France, and in the US with development centers close to our customers. So to the products that we are developing and producing, so all products you see here are related to regulations and partially as well to safety regulations where we are in a really where really high quality is required. The one product I was just talking about is the a.s.b.l, the seatbelt reminder on the top left. So if your passenger is not buckling up and the annoying beeping is starting, so that's us. So I know most of the users are not happy about it, but it saves life. And this product is coming from Luxembourg. And right next to it, the body sense is already a bit more complex product. So we're also the electronic part and the algorithm and software development starts. This product is used in the automotive and North American market, who's doing classification. What is sitting or who is sitting on the seat? Not who, but what is sitting on the seat? Who is giving then a signal how the airbag should behave. Next product, the VitaSense. This is a brand new product we're pretty proud of, produced fully here in Luxembourg. VitaSense, Vital Signs. So this product is installed inside the car, inside the rear bench or above the rear bench of the car, and who is detecting whether you are missing kids or animals inside the car. And even you believe it or not, in Europe there are more than 60 babies dying every year because they are just forgotten in the car, or just the parents went for 10 minutes to the supermarket. And even in the warmer regions, within 10 to 15 minutes, the car is heating up to 60 degrees, and the infants are not really able to survive that. Those products, VitaSense, and as well the hot hands-off or hands-on detection sensor, which is mounted in the steering wheel. These are the new challenges for the future, and where we're also getting more and more into the IoT world. The HOD is used for autonomous driving, so it makes sure that the driver all the time can or has the control of the car, or even not. So the car knows whether you are using the steering wheel manually or not. And finally, battery management components. This is a new trend. All the EV vehicles on the market. Also here we are taking our part of it and developing and producing systems, sensor technologies for inside the battery. Good. That's a bit about IE itself. But now coming to IE as an acting on a global market, and what are the challenges? As you remember, our footprint, we are located around the world. All our customers and the supply base is located around the world. There are tons of communication channels in both directions, so from us to the suppliers, also to the customers. And as you can imagine, this is not just the language which might change, as well the type of communication. So the external communication is pretty complex to manage that around the world. Even not everybody is using the same system. So you're going to the Asian region, so you can even work with PDFs, email, and maybe just phone calls, or you're staying in Europe, where the main communication is already via EDI, so the data are transferred on an electronic base. But the same towards the supplier. So you're dealing with small suppliers, big suppliers, and everybody's using their own system, but a real standardization on communication is somehow difficult. What risks can this bring, especially if you are going into the external communication? Let's assume you're receiving invoices, like usual. Every month you're receiving your invoices from a supplier. But on 1 month you're receiving an invoice which looks totally normal for you and even fits exactly to the amount you have to pay. But there are some details changed inside, because there was somebody in between who changed, for example, the bank account information and whatever. So you're sending the money somewhere else, but not to the right supplier. And the supplier is even wondering why the money is not coming, because you don't know. You're doing not even really a mistake. You're just trapped, well, you're just catched by a trap. But this all for the external communication, but external seems anyhow okay, complicated. But if you're now stepping to the internal communication and data management in your own company, your own organization, I think all what I just said should be easy, because you're talking the same language. You're going with this, you can standardize your communication channels. You can use your own system. You even program your own systems. But here again, if your whole organization, all your plants and your development centers around the world, or sales around the world, if there are
corrupt data somewhere in between, just assume we are doing a programming of process parameters in Luxembourg, sharing them with Mexico, and there is something different popping up at the machine, and we are producing bad quality, wrong parts, or even producing not at all because the data were lost somewhere in between. So this will create a big issue. This will create cost. And not talking about customer dissatisfaction and potential issues on the customer side. The same is valid for more or less all communication internally. If there is a European customer ordering pieces in Europe, produced in Mexico, sent out of Mexico or China, and there is somewhere a loss of data or corrupt data, will create, again, a huge issue in the organization. So, just because it's so present nowadays, everybody knows about component shortage, everybody has read it in the news and pandemic impact. That's also a topic of information and communication. So the worldwide effect I have just shown here on the left side. So maybe some of you know what it is, but it's somewhat easy to explain. I guess everybody knows exactly what happened in the beginning of the pandemic with the toilet paper effect. Everybody was running about toilet paper. But the question, did really somebody use more toilet paper during that time? At least I'm not. So the amount and the consumption during the time was mostly exactly the same than it was before and after. But there was rumor and noise on the market. Wow, there will be a lockdown. It will be not possible anymore to get toilet paper. So everybody was running behind toilet paper and was buying toilet paper for months. Yeah, but what happened? For sure, the market wasn't prepared for it. Why should we, Cactus, prepare for such a run on toilet paper just on those 4 months? And this demand fluctuation is driving and bringing the supply chain totally out of order. So everybody is running around like a crazy chicken.
And if we are now comparing this, what happens in the automotive market, and it's not just automotive, everybody knows meanwhile for wood, for paper, and all the industries are more or less affected. This is if you read the curve from the other side. So there was a sign somewhere, and in this case, the market was dropping because everybody was believing lockdown. Everybody will be in short-term work. Nobody will earn money anymore. They will just be at home and they will not take any risk on investment. So, but what does it mean for automotive? Nobody will buy a new car. That was the assumption. So what happened? Everybody just stopped ordering components, just stopped ordering cars because there will be nobody buying a car. But unfortunately, not unfortunately. Fortunately, that was a wrong assumption. But if you go through whole the supply chain, and especially if you see then the wholesaler, manufacturer, and supplier, if they are cutting down their demands, it will be really hard to get back getting pieces inside the supply chain, and then you're creating an artificial shortage. Besides COVID shutdowns and besides geopolitical events. And unfortunately, this is also hurting us a lot on inventory, short doing overtime and short work at the same time. Does it make sense? No. So, quick talk on what is the challenge for the future and what are the demands for our products in the future. We're talking about IoT and connected sensor solutions. Connected sensor solutions that started, many years ago, it was just you're locking your car and all the other doors you have to lock manually. Then it came with a central locking system. You had just the key. Then it was a remote key. Meanwhile, many of us can even just lock and open our cars by cell phone from everywhere around the world. And this is going more and more in all the other technologies. You can locate your car. You can even start your car remotely. And here, the OTA services are getting more and more important, where the customers require that you are getting information and data out of your car on the air, and also can use data, can update the systems and read out data. Just two examples from IE where we are going in this direction, ActiveSense and LiDARs, where online data are required. So time is running. Let's come to the, for me, most important slide of the day. Now I'm asking the audience, I'm asking the speakers coming next, how the problems we see in the industry, how the problems we see in the challenges, or the challenges we are seeing coming up for our new products, how can blockchain support here the Industry 4.0? Industry 4.0 is a nice word, and I think the most of the industry is trying to implement as much as possible. But how can blockchain bring an additional benefit to us? In regards of cybersecurity, I just mentioned the invoice story, for example, communication standards, integrity of data, availability of data, transparency, and maybe in many, many other things we even don't know, and you are going to tell us. So thank you for listening. I hope this was somehow interesting for you, and yeah, I'm glad to listen to your speeches. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephan. Thank you very much. So indeed some challenges. So for the next speakers, maybe also to see how they are replying. So we will also have a panel discussion later on where we'll further deep dive into these topics. Right. So I think we all agree that probably we all agree that blockchain is a disruptive technology, and another disruptive technology actually is additive manufacturing. And when you combine both technologies, blockchain and additive manufacturing, you can actually license printing processes, and you can also establish a secure chain of trust from the IP owner to the end customer. Our next speaker is Dr. Martin Holland. He is the Vice President, Business Development and Strategy at the PROSTEP, and he will present a sample. Sample allows all players to trace at any time which data is used in which processes, which printers, and how often parts are being printed by using blockchain technologies. sample allows also actually for the documentation of print process parameters and lifecycle tracking of parts. Dr. Holland, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Tom, for the introduction. Yes, hello everybody here in the room, and there's the camera, Hello to everybody on the computer and to Bologna. I would have loved to go to Bologna 3 years ago, nice city. And thanks, Stephan, for some of very nice words in your speech. So coming back to the supply chain waves and the toilet paper, it happened last year in April. We also had a shortage about this in Germany. I was in a drugstore and there was someone unpackaging huge amount of toilet paper. And I told him, oh, you have some toilet paper. Yes, but I don't have space. Take it. So that was exactly your way. It was down under the, and so that's it. So today I would like to talk to you about additive manufacturing and licensing additive manufacturing processes, and also related to supply chain. And I hope everything will work. Okay, so hopefully the blockchain will work. That at least what we talk about is working. So yes, again, so talking about additive manufacturing and talking about the secure supply chain. First of all, who we are, from which company I'm coming from. So I'm coming from PROSTEP. We are a PLM company, have products on the market for supply chain integration and doing also consulting work. We are more than 200 experts, and very important to know is that we work together with all major PLM vendors. Some of our customers you can see, it's automotive and space industry, so it's mainly focusing on the manufacturing industry. And we have some products on the market for integrating PLM systems and to support a secure supply chain. So these are some of the products, and it's always focusing at a secure supply chain, and we want to integrate all different systems the engineers are using internally, but also externally in the supply chain. BMW is communicating with all its partners in China in a secure way using our technology, for example. So we start from engineering, going to manufacturing, of course, also in the after sales and operational phase of such a product. You don't have to go through this in detail, but I just want to show that this is very complex work. There's a lot of systems involved, not everybody is using the same system. It has to be connected. You get data out of the systems, and you want to send that data to your partners worldwide, as Stephan already said. So let's take a look at someone like EE or like aerospace industry. They want to have a spare part supply chain, and they want to have it worldwide distributed because such a plane is standing somewhere in Sydney and he needs urgently an aircraft and a spare part, and you know, if this plane is grounded, that costs a lot of money. So they want to have a decentralized print service, and they want to send the data to the print service providers and in a very secure way, and they want to prevent that someone is using that IP, that qualifies, and starts a spare part business. So let's take a look at this supply chain, how it works. So we start with Airbus, for example. They have to send the build file. They have to send it in a very secure way, and that can be done using mails and so on, but that's really not secure. So normally you should have something which secures it. Then it goes to the print service, and Stephan already said you must make sure that the data is not changed in order to prevent misuse, in order to prevent that the wrong product is printed. So this is another challenge. At the end, the print service provider, can you trust him? Isn't he starting up his own spare part business? So this is another challenge we face here. Logistics, it has to be transported to the plane. You want to know where it is, and at the end, the end customer, he has a part in his hands and he wants to validate that this is an original part and not a counterpart. So these are some of the challenges we face and we look at in 2016. 2016, we started the project I'm going to show you today, the sample project. It was the first blockchain project in Germany at that time. And we took a look at these challenges, and at the end, we have a so-called chain of trust from the IP owner to the end customer. We established something what we call the reference platform, which you are going to see today. And we have REST services published, which can be used by print service providers, by OEMs who make additive manufacturing printers in order to get access to the blockchain and to integrate these printers as smart and secure IoT devices in our chain of trust. Lifecycle tracking by using RFID technology, for example, we established, and everything is used by OpenX and GlobalX. So during the project, that's what we realized using the blockchain technology. So again, we have the print license, which is issued by Boeing, for example. He says who is going to print which part, how often, who's allowed to do that. The print file itself is hashed. So by hashing this file, we can ensure that only the original file is printed or used by the print service provider. The data is then sent to the secure IoT device, which may be a printer, and all that information is stored in the blockchain. When the print process is ready, also the process data can be stored on the blockchain by hashing the process data file, and this is then stored in the blockchain. At the end user can take the part by means of RFID, by QR codes which are printed on there, and validate this part that this is an original part. So this is our sample coin where you can see an RFID which is in there. This is a part coming from a partner of the project, and there's a QR code printed on it which can be read out, and you get access to the blockchain. So this is the overall process, and this is then managed by this tool called GlobalX, which issues the license, which sends the data normally to the IoT device. What we will see here is we send it to an email, and after that it goes also to the printer. And this was realized, and that's what I'm going to show you now. So we will have a look at the blockchain. Hopefully everything is working. We will use this data exchange solution for sending a file. We will see in the blockchain that this license is created, how often. He is now allowed to print. We will go to the printer, log on, and at the end, hopefully, we can see the start of the printing process. So let's see if everything works out. Okay, so what you see here is the blockchain, which is now real life running. The last block was the number 384, which you can see up there. Just keep this in mind, the number. Now it's 385. Just keep it in mind. You will see some of the nodes. The fourth from the top, sample GlobalX, is one of our nodes we run in this blockchain. So now we log into our tool for a second. You think we are going and we want to send data to someone. So I have to create this, and of course, for security reasons, I have to log in again. And now I select the service provider who is going to print this part. And that is this guy. And now I tell him how often he is allowed to print something. Anybody has a number in his mind? Give me a number. 32? 42. I like this one. I take it. That's my favorite. Okay, and now it's set. And we have to select now the file. Okay, so what's happening now? It's being uploaded. Let's take a look at the notes. 390 now we are. Let's see where we really get up. So in the background, the file is hashed. Everything is written in the blockchain. And the receiver will be notified. Normally, the printer can directly be notified as a secure IoT device. In our case, for demonstration purposes, we take a look, and hopefully it's fast enough today. So for demonstration purposes, we have an email here, and we have quick 11:30. Perfect. So we take now a real look. So we got now the 42 licenses, and we can see in the blockchain now all the information, and here it's for us to read better. So we see the ID of the license, we see who was sending to whom what kind of data, You see the hash code of the print file, and you see the 42 licenses. So this was done, and which number is the block? Let's go just top again. Okay, it was 392. So in the block number 392, all that information is now stored forever, secure in the blockchain. And hopefully this is working now also. Now I connect to a printer. Printer is in Darmstadt. And you see already he's always checking if there's a license for me, can I print something? So you see the 42. I will get one of these licenses. And so he's connecting now again to the blockchain. He's connecting to the downloading for the Global X for downloading this file. And by triggering a smart contract, he will then look up, is there still a license I can use? And then he will deduct this, and then at the end we will see that just 41 licenses are left over, and we can start the print process, which is done now. You see 41, and I can start printing now, and I have to be very fast. Very fast, there it is, there it is. Okay, we got it. You saw the first movement, so this was now live. Our printer in Darmstadt, he's warming up, so that's why he just had his head move in this position, but this is now live, and he will start printing. So that was live blockchain in less than 5 minutes. You saw how you can transfer something, how you can connect to a printer, how you can ensure that the original part is really used and the original file was not changed by checking the hash code. So this is a very secure manner. Okay, so that is what I wanted to show you here. So final slide. So that's where we are now. It was a funded project by the German industry, by the German Ministry of Economics. We ended 2019, and now we are in the process of what we call industrialization. And we work together with different partners to get this now ready, to integrate the printers in this chain of trust. You have some added value services which you can integrate in this community for this QR code which is printed on a part, and everything is possible. So time is running short, and at the end, this is one of our sample points. So if you want to see if this is now a real part, and that's my final task for today. So I did this sample point now on our FID reader, and at the end, you are now an expert in reading blockchains. We see that this coin was created 608 days ago, and we have all the information that this is an original part and not a counterpart. So that's where we stand. As I said, we are industrializing this together with partners, and I think the next presentation is also something which fits perfectly to this thing, IP protection and so on. So that's where we are. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Martin. Very impressive, actually, and congratulations for your working demo. So it worked actually. So very interesting also to see blockchain live in action. Actually, I think that yeah, it's not the first time, but it's not that often that we have actually real demos that you can see. Actually, it's systems that are working live. Now, our next topic, we will speak about CAD files. CAD files, so computer-assisted design. CAD files, they are valuable assets, but they cannot necessarily be protected by traditional methods of IP protection, but they have to be treated as trade secrets. Yet, they have to be shared also quite a lot. And if implemented blockchain, actually, if implemented properly, blockchain can provide for tamper-proof way to trace ownership of an asset, but also including actually many versions of that asset, specifically, of course, for a file, a CAD file that can be changed quite a lot. And blockchain still allows for collaboration and secure sharing. Now, creating a legal tax solution that complies with GDPR, that's a challenge, but CADchain, our next speaker, it's all about thinking outside of the box. So we will see that now with our next speaker, Violetta Shishkina. She's the CEO of CADchain. So Violetta, the floor is yours. Welcome to the floor.
Hi. My name is Violetta. Thank you for having me here, both people who are here in Luxembourg, Bologna, online viewers. And we've already heard the previous speakers touch upon some of the topics that I will also go maybe more into detail. And depending on what the audience wants to know more, we'll be able to take a look at some examples. All right, I will try to stand here so you can see the screen. And today I would like to talk to you about why blockchain is one of the best solutions for protection of your intellectual property. And I will look at the example of CAD or computer-aided design files. Well, a few words about the current system of intellectual property rights. So if we take a look at data economy or Industry 4.0, for example, then we understand that the current system is not actually correlated with it. It doesn't really work well with it, and it's not a surprise because it was never meant for it. A few examples is that some of the rights that we all know are patents, trademarks, copyright, and so on and so forth. So, for example, patenting is not really meant for 3D printing technology. That's why, of course, it can be used for it, but you have to jump through the hoops. And software is possible but very tricky to patent in Europe. And copyright, which we know that it's an automatic right, so if not registered, it's very hard to prove that you actually own the copyright because, well, how many copies of any digital file can you create? A lot, right? Moreover, the worst part, especially for smaller companies, is that those IP rights are territorial. So if you want to register something, you have to register it for the territory where you're operating, and they're limited in time. So it means you always have to reapply. What that means, especially for a smaller company, is financial burden. So a lot of administrative fees that they have to put forward. And of course, if they have to go to court, that is a lot of legal fees. And in many cases, for a smaller company versus a bigger company, that's not feasible. So where does blockchain come in? There are certain things that blockchain can do quicker, cheaper, so it can definitely automate some of the parts of the intellectual property system, and I believe that eventually it can take over some aspects. We will, during the presentation today, talk a bit about proof of existence, proof of creatorship, proof of ownership, and how it can be done with blockchain and why we actually should be doing it. Let's take a look at the example of engineering and manufacturing industry, so CAD files. And I would like to say a few words about what a CAD file is. So CAD file is a computer-aided design. And if we're talking about regular traditional manufacturing versus 3D printing, that's where the difference becomes. The microphone is working? Okay, sorry. That's where the difference is vivid, because a CAD file, one might call it a raw or live file, which means that if it's sent to a collaborator, it's sent not for the purpose of just being produced, it's sent for the purpose of co-creating. So the collaborator wants to make some changes, add it to it, so create a different version, and send it back, for example. When it comes to an example of 3D printing, usually a file in a different format is sent, as Martin demonstrated, for the purpose of being printed, being produced, so not necessarily changed or edited. And usually what happens is that these files needs to be sent somewhere to be produced, and in many cases with traditional manufacturing, that's China. So a European company usually has to send the data to China, to the manufacturing facility there to be produced. So what happens is that if we cannot protect this CAD file with traditional IP methods, then we have to keep it as a trade secret. So a trade secret is something, as the name implies, has to be kept a secret. But in order for that file to be actually turned into a product, of course, it has to be shared. So it's a tricky situation where you have to follow some guidelines to make sure that this trade secret is properly identified, that it's shared according to the rules of data security, and legal measures have to be applied, contracts have to be signed, and so on and so forth before that file can be shared. And usually the biggest problem with data security is not actually the computer systems, it's human beings who make mistakes. Or a typical example, if there is a lot of contracts that are signed, will an engineer actually read through the contract to verify if they have the right to share that very file with someone? They might or they might not. Yes, I already mentioned China. It's an example that, of course, is classical in manufacturing. Why? Because the legal system of Europe and the legal system of China are different. It's not to say that one is better than the other, it's just they're different. So, for example, a company that wants to produce something in China has to take care of the legal part before they actually start looking for partners. So if they have something patented in Europe, they need to apply for a patent in China before setting up operations there. They have, of course, to also take care of the contracts. And a lot of people in Europe are used to signing NDAs, and they think that they can do the same with Chinese companies. But the fact of the matter is, it's better not to have any contract at all than to have a contract, than to have an NDA signed with a Chinese company, because NDAs simply do not work in China. And there's a lot of companies that make that mistake, and then, of course, after it's done, it's a lot harder to figure it out. IP law that companies have to take care of, it's also contract law, and both of these things are slow and very expensive. So especially in the age of R&D, when things have to be done quickly, when there's a lot of companies collaborating on the same thing, you cannot really wait for a contract to be signed by all the parties or for a patent to go through, because that might take months or even years. And both of these measures, so the IP law and the contract law, do not really take theft prevention into consideration. So they're all about going after the infringer after the fact of theft, not actually preventing it. So despite the fact that this is a huge industry, as the previous speakers have also demonstrated, we understand that there is no way to actually have, there's no standard that all the companies are using. So it's been mentioned that some people are using PLNs, PDNs, some people are sending stuff via email, different formats and so on, so it's basically a big mess. So let's take a look at how blockchain can help with this. If you think that blockchain is a safe where you put something, and then if you have a key to that safe, then you can prove that you possess something. So the blockchain doesn't really care or doesn't prove the validity of what's inside that safe. All it does is, if you have a key and you can open that safe, then you possess it. So how do you prove that you are the creator? Well, if you have several versions of something, so you can prove the process of creatorship from the beginning until the eventual final file, then you are the creator. How do you prove that you're the owner? Well, then we have to connect the identity of the file, of the asset, to the identity of the owner, and then the ownership can be proven. And blockchain can do all that, and this is what we have actually done in CADchain already. I'm not going to talk about 3D printing because that's been already mentioned, seeing as with 3D printing the problems of intellectual property are even worse, because one file can be sent to a distributed network of many printers, and then the situation with AP is exponential. So let me tell a few things about what CADchain has been doing, and we call our solution Boris, because he's a legal expert, he's a technical expert, and he wants to earn as an entrepreneur. So what we're creating is a plugin for different pieces of CAD software. We started with Autodesk Inventor, where we make sure that the process of creatorship is verified, where ownership is attributed directly to the company, even if the company is working with a freelancer, and that ownership can be easily transferred automatically. And due to the fact that Boris works right from within the software, then to establish creatorship becomes very easy because we start recording everything from the moment that that file is being created. All right, and that eventually helps with, let me go back to the example of China as the last example. So in China, what works in China is first in time, first in right, which means that if engineers have been using CADchain from the very beginning, where they started the creation of their file, then the record, the history of those versions is being tracked, the ownership is attributed, then the engineering company gets a certificate where all of this information is written down, and then in case something happens with a Chinese partner and they have to sue that partner, usually via traditional methods that is not possible. It's going to be very expensive and it's legally not going to be feasible. But China has online courts that accept blockchain-based evidence, and which makes it easy for any European company to go after a Chinese manufacturer or Chinese company in case there is infringement, and that can actually be done online. So Europe is also, well, it's lagging behind a bit, but it's going that way with the EIDAS. And thank you very much for your attention. Yeah, I wish I had more time to talk about this because I love the topic, but if you have questions, please find me or my colleagues during lunch and we can discuss this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shishkina. Indeed, you will have a bit more time also during the panel discussion to provide further details. So, and do not forget that we have the discussion. So if you have questions online, you can put them in the specific questions tab, which you find on the right-hand side of your screen. And of course, here in the audience, you can ask questions directly. Now I hand over to Cristiano in Bologna, who will actually introduce our next speaker, who is also speaking from Bologna. Cristiano, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Tom. I hope you can hear me properly. Thank you for the important information we received in the first two presentations on intellectual property and blockchain. We are now switching to something that is critical for ourselves in Italy, gelato, ice cream. The next use case, it's about Carpigiani. Carpigiani is one of the major, well, a global leader in production for machinery for ice cream. We will see a use case related to how they track the refilling of their machines and how to create a proper utilization of supply towards the customers through blockchain certification. To present this use case is with us Carlo Giannelli. He's associate professor at the University of Ferrara. He has a PhD in computer engineering, and primary research interests are clearly blockchain, industrial Internet of Things, Industry 4.0 in general applications. So I am glad to leave him the floor now. And please, Carlo, thanks.
I'm Carlo Giannelli from University of Ferrara and present you our solution developed with Carpigiani about the servitization of ice cream machines based on blockchain. First of all, few words about servitization, that is the capability of providing industrial machines without any upfront cost, but billing customers based on the actual monthly usage of industrial machines. And this new business case is mainly enabled by the adoption of industrial Internet of Things that provides the capability of monitoring and controlling the usage of machines. And of course, to adopt this use case, this business model, it's required some level of trust among industrial machine manufacturer and the customer, that they must agree about the usage of the industrial machine. In particular, we have Carpigiani proposes the ice cream machines not only with an upfront cost, but also based on servitizations. In this manner, it is possible to provide professional ice cream machines also to small food shops and restaurants that make only a small amount of ice creams every month and would not be able to pay the huge upfront cost of an ice cream machine. So in this manner, adopting servitization, Carpigiani is able to enlarge, to increase the market size, also providing their ice cream machines to restaurants and small food shops. But there is the need of trust among actors, and in this case we have, in the ice cream market sector, we have three main actors. That is the manufacturer of ice cream machines, the maker of ice creams, and also the companies actually producing and selling refill ingredients to make ice creams. And the traditional solution would be to adopt a centralized architecture. That is, for example, the ice cream manufacturer remotely control and monitor the users of machines and provides a monthly bill to ice cream makers. But we want to propose a novel solution based on a distributed architecture, allowing to make easier the interaction of the three actors in this ice cream market sector. And the main purpose is to agree on the certification of used refill and more in general refill processes of ice cream machines. The proposed solution is based on the Carpigiani industrial IoT solution called Teorema, already monitoring and controlling tens of thousands of ice cream machines worldwide. Then we use the refill amount used by each machine to infer, to evaluate the actual usage of its ice cream machines, but to store in a secure manner this information, we exploit the blockchain, and so allowing to force the endorsement of refill processes among the three actors, and also allowing to store information in a non-reportable and non-modifiable manner. From a level point of view, the steps are, first of all, the ice cream machine operator refills the ice cream machine, and once the ice cream machine senses that the refill procedure is complete, the refill has been provided in the machine, the ice cream machine sends a new transaction request to the blockchain. And this request is endorsed by a blockchain node, three blockchain nodes, a blockchain node for each of the three actors. So once the manufacturer, the refill producer, and the ice cream maker endorse the transaction is added to a block and finally to the blockchain, and then this information is stored in a secure, non-modifiable, and non-reputable manner. The proposed solution has been developed by exploiting the Hyperledger Fabric open source project. I will not provide many details, but it's an open source project, so widely adopted worldwide. And an interesting thing of this Fabric is that the same blockchain infrastructure can be adopted to provide different so-called channels. That is, it's possible to create a different ledger by exploiting the same blockchain Hyperledger Fabric node. And this is very useful considering that the same blockchain infrastructure is exploited by different ice cream makers and different ice cream refill producers. And of course, we have to consider that refill procedures are business relevant data. And for example, the amount of refill used by a company different producers should not be aware that, for example, the same ice cream client, the same ice cream maker is using different flavors of different producers. Only few low-level details. Just we exploit a smart contract. Just let me say that this smart contract is able to verify the identity of the node issuing the requesting the generation of a new transaction, and in addition, this smart contract is able also to verify some application-dependent information. For example, we verify that the timestamp of the refill procedure is legit, and we also verify that the amount of refill is legit, not too much, and not, of course, for example, a refill procedure with 0 kilograms of refill. Finally, let me do some consideration about the knowledge gap. Of course, we can't force an ice cream maker, a restaurant, to have knowledge about a blockchain, and maybe they don't have even knowledge about information communication technology in general. So we propose to the different actors the capability of exploiting this solution by exploiting a managed virtual machine pre-configured with every required blockchain library and node. But of course, if an actor has sufficient knowledge, perfect, they can deploy the solution from scratch. The main idea is there is a trade-off between the full control possible only if the actor has the knowledge to deploy Hyperledger Fabric, and the need to trust the administrator of managed virtual machine already providing every required feature. So in conclusion, the proposed solution is able to support the servitization business model based on without any centralized approach and without trust among actors. In the future, we want to identify the traffic cost, considering that ice cream machines are connected via cellular network. And we want also to adopt this solution also for food safety data, for example, to certify and the pasteurization procedures, the timing and the temperature about the pasteurization procedures. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Carlo. Clearly, a presentation, as we said, related to a specific sector, the one of the production of ice cream, but which goes into a proposal for a model that can be useful for several applications, particularly in the food chain, but in general in several different cases and scenarios. I now hand it back to Tom for starting the panel, which is the next step in the agenda. Thank you. Back to Luxembourg.
Martin Holland, who was Dr. Martin Holland, who was already on stage, and Shishkina. Violetta Shishkina on stage, and then we have also Thizy, who is a software developer at InTech. So please, warm round of applause for our panel.
Thank you, Tom. So as a quick introduction, it's my little commercial time. I'm from the DIH, the Digital Innovation Hub, which is based here in Luxembourg. It has been created and it's currently funded by the Ministry of Economy. And to sum up our activities, we are the one-stop shop for the Industry 4.0 topics. So who are in industry, manufacturing industry, who want to act in this domain, or ICT service providers who have some solution to propose to them, is the audience. So data, and data. Typically, Industry 4.0 is about that. Industry 3.0 was about computing and helping all the functions of the company to work by computer. And now we are connecting IT and OT, operational technologies. Just I would share data with you. We could hear that an average company generates, at this time, average manufacturing companies generates 1 terabyte of data per day. For sure, there is only 1% of it that is evaluated. But do you think from what you see in your prospects, in your clients, that blockchain is about becoming the notarial system of this Industry 4.0? Is this in the minds? Is this something that is... Martin?
Yeah, maybe I pull on this a little bit. Reminds me to a speech which was given by Dana, who was the CEO of Bosch about 4 years ago. And he said the big challenges and the new technology in the world in the future are artificial intelligence, cloud computing, so massive data, and also blockchain technology was one of his topics he said will be a game changer in the future. What we see now is that and I speak for the manufacturing industry, they are a little bit reserved about this. They are still looking for these great challenges or great use cases. That's what we see right now. There's a lot of use cases, and we heard today CADchain is a nice use case for IP protection, sample of course also. So they're looking at it, but the big click has not come. I would always say it's like someone is running and he's at the start ready to go, but they need something. In Germany, we have the VMA, the German Machine Tool Association, and they just opened up the group for identifying use cases. So I think it will come, but it's just in the beginning, I would say. And the interesting use cases are there. One interesting use case is, for example, I heard from the manufacturer of tools for cutting machines, for example, and he is licensing the tools now on bigger use cases. And for this, he uses blockchain technology. So this is coming.
Okay. Violetta, you want to add something?
Sure. Let me give a different perspective. Martin has been talking about bigger companies and how they value this. I'm gonna show you how it was for us as a startup when we started 3 years ago, and we mentioned the word blockchain from the stage. Well, it was scary because everyone connected blockchain to Bitcoin and Bitcoin to scam, and therefore what we're doing has to be not very good, right? So eventually we removed the word blockchain from our pitches. And what I've noticed is that if people really listen to what I was saying, then they would come to me after I get off stage and they say, hey guys, I'm using blockchain. So I realized that even without saying the actual word, if I describe what it is we're doing, people who understand, they will understand. People who are scared will not get scared. So fast forward 3 years, suddenly the European Commission says that, hey, you're going to support blockchain now. So now the support is coming from there. And we put the word blockchain back into our pitches because now it's becoming fashionable. Now we need to show that we use it. So the attitude is actually changing because there is trust that is given by the third party. Now it's the European Commission, of course. And that's why the companies are looking closer, because now it's not just me, the startup, who's telling them that blockchain is good for them. Now it's someone higher up there, the stage that is saying this to them. So of course, a bit more trust is coming. But as also Martin mentioned, yeah, the use cases. It's mostly financial that all the companies are looking at. So when I have to deliver a speech and I say, hey, we're using blockchain to protect intellectual property, everyone's like, what? Huh? We didn't think that was possible.
Okay, a lot of pedagogy has to be done still.
Okay, so from our point of view at InTech, we have more and more clients that are willing to protect the value chain to the client, especially for luxury items. There are already several blockchains that are in place, especially in Switzerland. And from my more personal point of view, we have with the shortage we have nowadays, it's more related to participative financements, and there is a need to track the products of the solution chain across the board, loss package, something like that, and to track the product that is sent to the manufacturer, mainly in China or distributed around the world. And yet they are started launching an experiment around that, using blockchain to track their files for their products and to track the produced products that they are coming back to the clients.
Okay, thank you. So we were until now on the blockchain as an enabler on the Industry 4.0 field, but it also could be a new business model generator. And the pitch from Carlo Giannelli. Carlo, do you hear me?
Yes, I hope. Sorry, there's some echo.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So, from your point of view, from what you've seen so far based on the project you presented, do you have any other projects or other prospects for such usage of the blockchain in the let's say production, even if you are on B2C business with the ice cream machine, but can you imagine that tomorrow some additive manufacturing machines could also be used as what you propose?
Project that I presented is in a very specific, while important market sector, and I think that a nice point of this project is it can be adapted and adopted also in other market sector. Also think about additional actors, for example, a bank interested in monitoring the usage of industrial machines because they have provided a loan to the customer, or think about the possibility of an health agency interested in participating in the blockchain because they want to get up-to-date information about the pasteurization of ice creams, so they can actually monitor in case of hazards. So once this kind of solution is adopted, I think that it can be easily modified and upgraded to different sectors and different actors. I hope that this answers your question, because the audio here is not the best. Okay.
Okay, no. About the identity management now, we talked a lot about sharing information, but what about identifying these machines? Because at this moment on your demo, and since for that, we still have a lot of manual steps to achieve, but we could imagine that in the future it will all be done directly by machines. And could you tell us more, perhaps, about OpenDXM, right? And perhaps, or you could start also, Kevin, because I think you are working on such a subject also, about how identifying the assets.
Yes, so the main problem we have is that for many devices that produce data or consume data, they don't especially have the power, the cryptographic power to verify or to sign messages on their own. So we mainly see 3 levels of data security. The first one is the device is not capable of signing because it's sending analog data, for instance, no cryptography at all. And so it's sending the data to like a node, a brain that is collecting the data. And that brain, which is managing multiple devices, sign the data for it. So we have to trust that central nerve system that manages the devices. The second level is when the device is capable of signing data. So if we sign the data to prove that it comes from the device using a trusted chip on the device. And the third level is when you want to sign the data to authenticate it that it comes from a specific device and to encrypt the data so that only some people can receive it. And this is the most secure way to, because the device itself will sign and encrypt the data to its consumer. So it's the most secure way, but most devices don't have the power to do that. So usually what we do is that we put an identity for the device that is managed by the brain, and the brain will sign delegated for the device.
Okay. Do you have something about OpenDX?
Yeah, it's more or less also at different levels, and then just talking about the highest level, it's really that we have the machine, the printer as an IoT device with a secure element integrated, and so there's kind of handshake process going on when he links up to open, for example, OpenX, and only if this handshake is validated, then the data is downloaded and directly encrypted down to the machine. And here we work really on the controller unit of the machine, so the data is as long as possible up to the controller unit encrypted. So there we have a really high level of security.
Okay, thank you. Violetta, perhaps one point about how you identify the different actors or assets in the process.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the human aspect of this because if everything goes according to plan, then the machines can communicate with each other fine. What happens if something goes wrong or something has to be changed? So a simple example that we like to use and that's been given to us from 3D printing industry. What happens if the same file has to be printed on a printer that's located in different geographical conditions? So the settings that were tested and tried, for example, in the Netherlands, are they going to work if the printer is located in Singapore? Well, the print quality is going to be different just because the humidity level is different there. So someone needs to change the settings, the print settings. And who's it going to be? And we actually need to identify the person because, well, the scary word liability comes up, of course. You hang out with the lawyers, you learn to see life from their perspective. So if that person, say the print operator, changes the settings, of course we need to make sure that the identity of that person is verified. Well, first of all, before they get access to the printer, and second of all, in case something goes wrong. If the product that's been manufactured with those altered settings actually is faulty, then it's easy to trace back to where the error occurred. And of course, that's, to talk in the traditional way, then it's easier to take someone to court.
Yeah, sure.
Just one more thing about the qualified machinery man or woman working there. So to our point of view, we had a discussion with Airbus on this topic, and I think it's a perfect use case for the blockchain. That the workers, they get a qualification, a certificate, whatever. You can put it together with the idea of the worker in the blockchain. You can trigger a smart contract as long as the certificate is valid. It is there. Once it's out of date, then it's automatically deleted. So I think that's a perfect use case for the blockchain we're looking at, because it's the worker who's qualified and not someone like W whatever. And so this qualification really then belongs to the worker.
Yeah, and it's important. trust me, do not forget the worker in the Industry 4.0. And that's a perfect transition to my next question. But before that, I would invite our online participant. I don't know if you on the room are able to answer this poll, but we have published 3 questions for you, and yeah, we are eager to know more about where do you stand with blockchain in your project. Yeah, typically about workers. To build on top of the speech of the Minister Franz Fayot, he mentioned sustainability. And do you think that the project you are creating at the moment you are building could play a role in better sustainability on the pure production process, so avoiding waste typically, because when you increase quality in this domain, you decrease waste. You could also imagine some scenario of reusing things between all the actors, but also enforcing the quality of your workforce and their training and their value. So, is this something that you could use with your prospect, typically, to convince them? Is this something that you could hear?
Yeah, sustainability always comes into play if you have a distributed manufacturing. If you don't have to ship the spare parts all over the globe, you can manufacture them locally. So that helps reduce CO2 emission, and looking at additive manufacturing also the technology. You don't need so much metal at the end when you talk about metal or plastics, because it's really you build the product yourself and you don't have to cut and have a lot of waste. So yeah, it's definitely something.
Thank you. Violetta?
Well, actually, would like to ask a question to see if what people think. So I'm wondering if you've been hearing that blockchain, and especially in connection to NFTs, that's so environmentally unfriendly. Has anyone heard about this? Yeah, well, not many people, but yeah, this is what's the hype that's been going around, that yeah, blockchain is horrible from the environment point of view. And yeah, not going to go into detail, and I know one of my colleagues takes the topic, but just to say that not all blockchains have been born equal, and we're just at the beginning of this technological wave, so it's going to get better and better. But first, that is something that we, for example, take into account, and the blockchain protocol that we're using is very environmentally friendly. So just to say, not boasting, just to say that this is possible to create, to use this technology and keep this in mind. And of course, to reiterate a bit what Martin said is, if everything is recorded and tested settings-wise, for example, for the printers, then the prototyping stage goes quicker, because you don't need to create 10 prototypes that don't work and that have to be thrown out. If someone has already verified that this setting is going to work in your conditions on this very printer, then the first batch that you print, that's already good. So that's also very sustainable.
Yeah, for sure. Kevin, perhaps one word on this topic?
Yeah, maybe a quick idea, because if we're talking about the process of manufacturing, but if we integrate the waste recyclement or the waste itself into the identity of the object, then there is some sort of incentive to know that this specific item has produced that amount of waste. So you know it, and if you know it, then the consumer can take action or
can trade it.
Yeah, exactly. And the second thing is that it's more like the tracking of items, especially for some major brands, that they want to know who owns their products. And if they know who owns the products, when you change your product, they can incite you as well to, hey, you still own that bag. Would you like to dispose of it, to do something with it? So they know that you have it, and if they know that you have it for a long time, maybe they can also contact you. And if you dispose that item in a wrongly manner, then also, well, the regulator can know that this device or this item was disposed illegally, and we know who was the last owner, so we can take action.
Yeah, okay. And Carlo, in Italy, you copy me?
Okay. So sorry, but I need a refresh, because the question is about how to exploit blockchain to manage identity. Is it true?
On the topic of how it changes the way people are working, and on your side, how the ice cream vendor typically are welcoming this new kind of machine. I could guess that it avoids them some hassle in their daily routines.
Okay, thank you. I can say that the main idea is to hide the technical details about the adoption of blockchain, and so the most important thing is to specify that based on the blockchain, they can store information about the production of ice creams in a secure manner, and they don't have to trust on each other. But of course, as I said before, the adoption of blockchain should be not left to actors because of the difficulties. So.
There was one question from an anonymous participant, Mr. Dieter Emmer, who asked, do all participants run their own notes? But that was already 1 hour ago, so I don't know if he's still online. Maybe he can just tell us in the poll for which speaker he actually intended the question. But there's a question in the room, so let's take that maybe.
Hello, my name is Carlo Giannelli from iTrust Consulting. I have a question to all of you related to the EU directive on MIS. The new 2.0 calls for additional security for the supply chain. Is that the directive that you support? And second part of the question is the directive on resilience, which may be even more relevant for industry. Does it also go in this direction, and do you support it? And the key question is, do you think blockchain is a good way to support this additional security? By the way, the current version of the directive does not yet mention the word blockchain. Thank you.
Okay, who wants to take the point? I have to admit, to be honest, I wasn't aware about this directive. So from my side, you won't have any question, but more generally, how are you connected to perhaps you know this directive, or how are you connected to the and driven also by the directives and the standards?
Leading on, I personally also never heard of this one. Is it new, just issued today, or
no.
years ago?
Here discussion is an update of the current MIS directive for network information services that is currently applicable.
Okay. So I'm not so much in the technical details of our product, but I know that looking at our customers like VW, Daimler, Bosch, just to name some big ones, they have a very key point of view on security, and they always make penetration tests. So I think that we are really looking at this.
Okay. I can try to answer the question without answering the question. Just as an example, usually all the things that come from the government, they of course impose a procedure that smaller companies cannot implement easily, because that's either going to be very expensive, or that's going to put such a load on the infrastructure that smaller companies are never happy. An example of that would be GDPR, for example, and for years we've been hearing that GDPR and blockchain are not compatible, so we should even give up the idea of using blockchain, especially if it's public. Well, things have changed, because you don't need to actually put any private and sensitive information onto the blockchain itself, and voila, the problem of GDPR is solved. So I'm assuming it's going to be the same with this directive. there will be a way found around it in a sense that it will be followed, but it will be possible for smaller businesses to eventually legally implement it without too much of a financial burden. But well, I'm not aware of that of the details of that initiative either. So just to say that as soon as the details are out, we will take a look. Of course, I'm pretty sure that there will be something done about it.
Big debate about who is driving the legislative between and the tech.
Yeah, just one comment also on the GDPR topic, that's the blockchain. So I guess most of you mentioned one of our partners in the project is DWF, which is a big law company. They have several thousand lawyers worldwide. And we were very happy to have them in the project because they directly looked at this GDPR process, and some of our universities working there came up with solutions Violetta just mentioned. So it's not an issue for the blockchain. You can implement it in a way that GDPR is protected.
Thank you. Kevin, one more this topic.
I don't know about this directive either, but I think from a more technical point of view, I can go parallel with other directives that exist. Usually, I don't know, you tell me, but they place space in trusted parties for the matter of security. And inherently, blockchains, but not all blockchains are not born equal either, but took that trust from parties and put them into the network. So usually, there are some points regarding this directive that are not followed strictly by blockchains, and we have to complement the blockchain with the addition of these trusted parties again, but more as watchers and guardians of the chain more than specific actors of the network.
Thank you. Is there any question in the room? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Dr. Schreiner. I'm a medical doctor, and I'm here because I just want to know the current situation of blockchain and healthcare. So I'm interested, is there any what I wonder is how can blockchain be integrated in healthcare? And for example, according to patient records, so electronic health records. For me, it's very important to handle the data of patients in a very secure way. Can you say something about this topic? Because it's, if we look in other European countries, there are some action in this direction, but still not sufficient. And that's why this technology seems to me very important to have a secure way for patient data. So this is what I want to know from your part. I thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah, you just got my hobby, I would say, a little bit. So we were looking at some of these healthcare topics, and also I mentioned this certificates of workers, which you can say, okay, they're public to everybody or not. So you can keep that secret in the blockchain, you can do that. And the agenda is to issue a license to your doctor you talk to, that he is now allowed to see this. And then a couple of years ago, we had a hackathon on blockchain, and some of the use cases you just mentioned were addressed there. So definitely you can use it, but I guess a lot of people will be frightened because they always think, oh, blockchain, that's public, everybody can see my data. So you really have to, if you go in that direction, I think you have to start very early with educating the people and tell them it's secure, because I think the health data is something very, very critical.
Much more than GDPR, much more sensitive.
Well, I have a lot of examples. Let me see which one I will use. The problem here between healthcare and blockchain is not blockchain. The problem is healthcare and the fact that they don't want to change. So when we looked into 3D printing in healthcare, we saw, at least in the Netherlands, that in order for the hospital to have something printed, they actually put, they create the 3D model, they put it on the flash drive, and then they ask someone with the flash drive to go to the printing facility to have that printed. Yeah, anything can happen to that flash drive on the way. So they thought there was a secure way, but no, someone loses that flash drive and all the data is out there. When a hospital actually has a 3D printer on premises, then it's not connected to the internet because they think, hey, if someone can hack the system, if we cut the internet off, they will not be able to go through. Then, of course, it's a bit more complicated to use blockchain without the internet. So we've been also, of course, like the case of bioprinting that blends the blockchain, the 3D printing, and the privacy information all together. That's where the technology is moving. But once again, is the healthcare going to be able to take the leap of faith and actually, at least as a pilot, try to run this test, for example? I'm afraid that, well, at least from my perspective as a startup, because we're always moving forward, we're always trying to challenge things, we always try to innovate the test. Yes, sometimes it fails. The healthcare, just like the government wants to be on the safe side, and if something is working, yes, it's slow, yes, it's complicated, yes, it's expensive, but it's working. So they really don't want to do anything because it's functioning.
Thank you. And you, Kevin, from what I know, you are not only acting on the industry, but did you see any project, any idea the last months about using blockchain in medical systems?
Yes, to share, to authenticate basically the files of a patient, to share it with another practitioner, but we don't use the blockchain to store the data. Like the same use case that Martin presented, is that you use the blockchain to authenticate the data with the hash of the documents, but you still share the document, but they were still sharing the document via email, usually encrypted, but they are the usual secure channel of the practitioner between them. The blockchain was added to secure the authenticity of the data.
Thank you. Yeah, just one more question. So perhaps the person just in the back. There's 2 minutes left.
Thank you. My name is Thizy. I just recently made a new educational website called edublockchain.eu. And I just wanted to ask, you have been talking about transparency and traceability of blockchains, and we know today it's a time of big data, and also you mentioned GDPR. So I wanted to ask if you can talk a little bit about blockchain and installing a protective layer for consumers, especially, and consumer protection. Thank
you. Who want to jump in?
The question, what do you mean by this consumer protection? So that his identity is not open?
His identity is not open, his data is not linked to it,
yes.
The services are still offered in a personalized manner.
So I cannot go into technical details because that's not my personal subject, but I can just quote our project that we looked into this. And we talked about a worker working at a machine, so then directly I have the GDPR topic here. And then so we developed some kind of ways how you can make it secure that the person is not identifiable, only to those who wants to open his identity. So that's possible. We can talk about this maybe later at lunchtime, and I can give you some more, at least connections to talk to.
Yeah, I'm going to give a very quick answer. The person who asked the question. So in front of you, there's this guy called Timo. Yes, Timo, don't just turn your head. So he's the right guy to talk about this. Get him. He will talk to you for hours about this, and he will yeah, you will regret asking the question, but you will know and learn a lot.
Lunchtime will be fruitful. Yeah.
You understand well, you want to share some information with someone else without having anyone else to see the data. And even, well, we have technological way to do so. They are called zero knowledge proofs, mainly, and advanced cryptographic and encryption matters. You can share the fact that you have an information, that this information is valid in regard to some compliance check, but without even disclosing the information. For instance, you could prove your age without giving away your date of birth, that you are above a certain age. That kind of thing is absolutely possible. And there are some standards to securely as well share or initiate an encrypted connection between you, the holder of the data, and someone who wants to verify the data, which could be verified. So you can share securely the data, some part of the data, or an assessment without sharing the data itself.
So Carlo, in Italy, would you like to share with us some points about the...
I can hear me. Okay, I think so. And regarding the previous question, we have to consider the right to be forgotten. And of course, if we put health data on blockchain, that's not possible. Okay, but we are developing a solution to store COVID tests with CADchain, and COVID tests are actually shared among different companies, but privacy-related information are stored in traditional database managed by different companies, while the blockchain is used to certify this data. In particular, we store in the blockchain secure signature and hash of information. So if we want to destroy data, we can destroy data on traditional databases, but we can't modify this data, we can forge this data, otherwise this data would not match the secure signature in the blockchain. And of course, the blockchain is not modifiable, not reputable. And regarding the identity, we exploit a permissioned blockchain because in our use case, for sure, the different actors know one each other very well, and the adoption of blockchains allows to agree on the generated and stored data, but the identity of the different actors must be verified.
So, thank you very much, and let's continue the discussion during the lunch, I guess.
Thank you indeed to you, Nicola, and to all our panelists, including also to Carlo in Bologna. Thank you very much. Now, before lunch, sorry, it's not yet lunchtime, Carlo. You have to wait a little bit more. We have one more presentation which we brought to you online. Actually, it's a presentation by our master sponsor, Fujitsu. So thank you again to all our sponsors, leader sponsor, Nomadic Labs, master sponsor, Fujitsu, and expert sponsor, the Blockchain Academy. So as I said, the next presentation is brought to you by our master sponsor, Fujitsu. It will be an online presentation presented by Frederik de Breuck, who is the head of the Enterprise Blockchain and Track and Trust Solution Center by Fujitsu Global. And Frederik, he will explain us and show us, present us some concrete production cases that are solving real-world problems already today. Frederik, I saw that you are already online. So Frederik, the floor is yours.
Welcome, everyone. And let me start you with a little quote. And it's a quote from Simon Sinek. We all know safe is good for sidewalks and swimming pools, but life requires risk if we are to get anywhere. And I think that reflects a bit how we operate in the Enterprise Blockchain Center at Fujitsu, is to make sure we take a non-linear approach to business problems we see at customers, because people tend to think very linear and see one problem after the other. But if you want to really disrupt and really make a difference, and you want to build enterprise blockchain solutions and fix operational friction issues, you have to really think completely outside the box and even throw away the box and think again, which is one of my favorite other quotes. So I try to keep it very short, but what's important at Fujitsu is that last October we launched a little sub-brand called UVANCE, a combination of Universal Advance. And I think some people have a lot of time to think about these kind of brandings, but it basically says we will focus in the next 10 years on the 7 key areas. And some of them are related to sustainable manufacturing, consumer experience, healthy living, and trusted society. And all of these are supported by a number of digital technologies, of which enterprise blockchain and in the wider sense, data and decision support is a bigger one. So, because that's one of the things we noticed in all these blockchain projects is that it's never just a blockchain solution. It's a lot more. It's about convergence of technologies, and most of the time it's 80% a business problem. And sometimes you even have to say no, because there is a better solution, and it goes to or a different solution. It all comes back to that interoperability, and interoperability for the, let's call it more purist blockchain people. They always talk about blockchain to blockchain protocols and all these things, but often it's also with existing systems. And how do I get from A to B? It's the journey that matters, not only the result. And that's what we try to do with a number of customers. And all of our work on a global scale sits around operate, implement, and advise. And we can provide a number of services, but we have also some specialty services that allow you to rapidly prototype some of these things. We have some standalone SaaS solutions, but we also have several production systems already running. And I know I'm going to go quite fast because I'm keeping you all for and what we think is in co-creating and working with our customers, we can really show our capabilities. Because Fujitsu is not really a full business consultancy company. We're no longer a pure technology company. We're sitting right in the middle. Fujitsu is kind of in that, we call it often business technologist, as Gartner says. These are the points that you have, you're able to link the business problems, points, efficiency, risks with a technology component or a combination of technology component that really helps accelerate also the adoption of ledger technology in general, and most of the time blockchain in particular. That being said, we also nice context that this is still a touchy subject. One of your speakers also said, the first question you always get is, it's about Bitcoin and it's about public and my data is going to be public. There's much, much more about this technology, and it really helps for companies to stay relevant, because it's about the company, it's about the ecosystem. And that's that mindset and that way of thinking we try to implement time and time again with our customers. One of our foundational projects is about 2 years already in production. It's about a very fragmented and broken down trade called rice trade. So there's only 700, 800 very big rice traders in the world, but they do not trust each other. It's highly fragmented. You have a very limited hedging. What we built is an exchange for them based on Hyperledger Fabric with an integrated supply chain solution. So next to KYC and Know Your Customer vetting module, we built a full exchange where private and public, in this sense, in an isolated sphere of buyers and sellers can come together. We have also integrated service providers in this, insurance companies. Even we have integrated with the ordering and EDI system of Maersk, for example, so that they don't even have to leave the platform to ask for a quote or a provisional quote or a final quote, and they can even go with the deep in our platform to book the actual container. And so we started here with working with a scale-up company based in Singapore. So, and they are doing commodity trading in rice particularly. And here it is, and I hear it in a number of other questions before, that this is all about traceability, transparency, but also about finality of the trade. So we are currently running this platform for a 300 plus organization, and we have a 3-year contract with this company also to have a kind of a, let's say, evolution of the platform. Sprints, CI/CD, and all the fun stuff the technical people love to do. Of course, one of the things you could say, yeah, but why don't you do the full settlement of the payments and all these things? We do the contract handling, and of course, if you look at the global trade situation, to do something which is illegal, so the actual payment is done off-chain, but the payment instruction, that's something we do on the platform. And as Fujitsu is also keen to help scale up growth, we have also taken a particular share in the holding company above this company to help it evolve. And one of these consequences of that is that we basically cloned the platform and we modified it to also support the workflow for fertilizer, which is one of the other big commodity trades in the world. Good. So here you are, and I see a lot of words that I also heard from the panel just before, and it's about that verifiable data. And verifiable data, in my opinion, is mostly about I can be sure that person A and person B are looking at the same data. Even if you use zero knowledge proof, I can even get the feedback from your ledger that says, yes, I agree, this is the same data, or the same document, or the same hash, or so. It's also that finality and transparency of trades, because if you look at it, this was a very paper-driven trade, and now they made a big jump in a digital platform. Plus, it brings kind of that trust in an untrusted situation, and that's something which is why you could already adopt this kind of technology today. It doesn't have to be full-blown decentralized. You can already go with distributed, and then okay, that's one of the steps in adoption, and that's what we saw in the enterprise context. Is yeah, there's a number of middle steps you can already take, unless you're building a completely new business unit or a new platform, or a new company. It's fine to take into account what you have already today, start with the distributed for a very specific use case or a friction point, and then you can take the next step by doing a secondary market or whatever you want to do afterwards. Good. And this is a project, and there has been an announcement this morning on the global website of Fujitsu, which is a project I'm very proud of. This is an Australian company, but with a headquarters registration in UK. But when you produce anything related to vegetables, juices, sugar cane, or whatsoever, there's a lot of water that is wasted or keeping in the stuck in the production cycle. And there is somebody who has created an invention, a container with a whole lot of reverse osmosis technology and sensor and whatsoever to process that water and get out. There's 3 trillion liters in the world that is wasted. So what we are building here, together with botanical water technologies, is a very impacting platform related to SDG 6. So we help companies become water positive, and it's about, and I will move to the next slide because it's maybe a bit more clear where I have the flow of this. So what we building here, we're now in pre-MVP, let's call it. So they have a production unit they can infuse in an existing production process. And there's a lot of sensors and devices which we have also integrated with Ledger, just as some of the colleagues said. Okay, you have to be sure that it has an identity, and it's also supported by other data, so you can go verify what that device is doing. But once the device is recognized and the production unit, that the person that has the water, it can add it to a virtual silo, which can then be sold on the platform. Now, there's 3 types of water that come out of it, because the purity of this water is so high that you even have to remineralize it to be able to sell it. So it can be retail water, it can also be ingredient water. And think about, for example, and that's one of the trial projects we're going to do in India, is you put that unit in sugarcane production, and the Coca-Cola bottling plant, which sits 50 kilometers away, can actually have that ingredient water used in its production process, which is kind of very close to that circularity. And a third level we have built in here is a bit more like the carbon trading is offset trading. Data or other companies, Microsoft, for example, in Nevada, they have a data center. They use 7 billion liters of water a year to cool it. So they can offset and become water positive by adding that water and buying that water credit, which is then transferred to a foundation, distributed to certain NGOs. So this is a very cool stuff to do, actually, because it combines the whole vetting, IoT integration, identity management data, and this is set for production in March 22. So the rice exchange and fertilizer, they are in full production. Another one which is also quite interesting, and why we tend to go always to these ledgers with a purpose, is together with the scale, we have built an application that allows you to trace the whole production process for cotton t-shirts and certain specific brands. Everybody knows that there's a lot more, let's say, consumer awareness about where things are produced, how they are produced, and what we do here is related to fair trade, codes, or whatever certification. We can map out a supply chain through a brand, through the tier 1 suppliers, up to spinning and ginning and the cotton fields and the cooperative that is producing the cotton, to allow that to trace it. And also we have created a number of simple apps that allow, for example, to take a picture of the harvest with geo-coordinates. We store that on the ledger so you can evidence it, and you have the whole life cycle of it. So it's both for consumer, very interesting, but also for procurement or supply chain officers, or for compliancy people. This is helping compliancy people to make the case for supply sustainability standards. And hearing about the EU directive, I think we should all be aware that there's a number of directives also coming related to supply chain transparency, which has been tested in Germany, I believe, last year, so that you all have to show who is big part of your supply chain. I think there's going to be a threshold on company revenue, but still, I think everybody should be ready to be able to evidence, and this technology, DLT and blockchain, allows you to do that in a, let's say, more automated way than before. Because if you have to go verify all the steps in the production of a t-shirt, it's going to cost you a lot. Because there's 13 steps in the production of a t-shirt. From the cotton field to the warehousing, to the spinning, the coloring, and all these things. So, and that's the same for food production. It's often underestimated. And this is an MVP project which has been closed in January this year, and we're now working together with AB InBev on the big follow-up of this project, including with AI on the edge, and then of course also the traceability of the identity. But we did a kind of farm to bottle traceability, transport, and the environmental impact of beer bottles. So we tested this with, I think, 1 million bottles of Leffe in France, where we traced all from the malting company with a QR code on the packaging, and I think I have a picture on the next slide. Yeah, that's the one. I think some of the people know Leffe. It's kind of one of the famous Belgian beers. And by extension, this is not just about getting that information to the consumer, but also identifying those friction points in the supply chain of this. So that would extend, for example, to information on when to harvest, or information on what the sensor does on the humidity on a field before the harvest. Because one of the things, for example, in a beer producing, and not a lot of people know, if you harvest on the wrong time and there is more investment, you get more foam in the beer, and more foam that can count up to 20% loss in production. And you have to do much more. It's much more environmental impact. So there you have to be careful. I think I'm almost done. So I have my own quotes, and I know it's very arrogant to do so, but I think it has been picked up from one of the articles I wrote recently, and it says, there is no real business value in telling what you will do. The true value sits in explaining what you have already done to make it better. And I think that's the true belief in what we do in the Enterprise Blockchain Center, in combination with also the analytics team and a number of other people, and because it's all about that customer experience and user experience. And sometimes you have to say to the customer, you don't have to care whether there's blockchain behind or ledgers behind it. It's a secure solution for your business problem. And that should be the starting point of every discussion. Thank you for your time and for taking the time to listen to me.
And thank you very much, Frederik, indeed. So you see that I changed rooms. In the meantime, I'm not with the audience anymore. So I'm now already in the side session room, but for you now in Luxembourg and also in Bologna. So it's lunch break time. So I hope that you enjoy your lunch. We will reconvene again at 1:45. In the meantime, I invite online participants to change the room to come to the token side session, which will start right now in 2-3 minutes once we are all in the rooms. So token is actually a project financed by the European Union's Horizon 2020 project. It's about transforming public services with DLTs. And in the side session, we will present the token blockchain platform as a service, which allows us to easily adopt blockchain and to manage processes in a more open, trustworthy, efficient, and transparent way. So please join us all now in the token side session online. And again, for the people in the room, I wish you a good lunch, good discussions, and see you this afternoon.
Thank you also from Bologna. See you this afternoon.